Hi class, these are the key terms for the Using Theories chapter. We've already talked a little bit about positivism, which treats social facts as existing independently of the activities of participants and researchers. That's where positivism, that theoretical model, is largely where a social scientist would use quantitative reasoning. By contrast, a qualitative researcher would study how phenomena are experienced, or as we said before, when we define naturalism, which is a research model that looks at a subject's world on their own terms and asks what is going on. You're using naturalism in your interviewing. You're looking at asking people how they see the world and what's going on to them. Another qualitative method, which we've also discussed, is constructivism, which looks at how social realities are produced and assembled and maintained, how they're constructed in everyday life. What we called before constructivism, focusing on how phenomena come about through the close study of interactions. So this chapter talks about how theories get used and the terminology that goes with that use. So models. There are all kinds of different there are all kinds of theoretical research models. Naturalism, constructivism, positivism. These are all different theoretical research models, fill in the blank, that provide an overall framework for viewing reality. These models inform the concepts we use to define our research problem. So the book mentions that to constructionists, which you've been quizzed on before, inner lives and social worlds are epiphenomenal to the constructive practices of everyday life. But what does that mean? An epiphenomena is, according to Merriam-Webster Dictionary, a secondary phenomena accompanying another and caused by it. So according to constructionists, inner lives and social worlds are accompanied by and causing the constructive practices of everyday life. Wait, have I got that right? Anyway, epiphenomena, you just need to know that it's a secondary phenomena accompanying another and caused by it. So the constructive practices of everyday life cause inner lives and social worlds. So inner lives and social worlds are epiphenomenal. Just trying to get that one right. Many kinds of qualitative research use constructionist theories. For instance, grounded theory, narrative analysis, discourse analysis. So let's just define them. Grounded theory is you look really closely at your data and you induce your hypothesis from studying, you're getting deep in the data. So in formal language, you induce your hypothesis from close data analysis. So grounded theory is a theory which involves 3 stages. There's an initial attempt to develop categories which illuminate the data, and then an attempt to saturate those categories with many appropriate cases in order to demonstrate their relevance, and then the attempt to develop these categories into more general analytic frameworks with relevance outside the setting, your theories. By contrast, narrative analysis, which, just be careful here because we've already talked about conversation analysis. It's different from narrative analysis. So narrative analysis is the study of the organization of stories, how people make a beginning, a middle, and end to their stories, what plots and characters they use when they tell their stories, how they organize stories to make the stories meaningful or coherent in a form appropriate to the needs of a particular occasion. So it's really looking at how these stories become meaningful. And that's also different from discourse analysis. I know this gets confusing, but we're in qualitative methods, so you kind of need to know all these different kinds of theories. Discourse analysis is the study of the way versions of the world or of society or of events and inner psychological worlds are produced in discourse. So discourse analysis looks at different versions of different stories that produce different versions of how things go. You could do a discourse analysis on books in what's called the Christian New Testament, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. If you look really closely at those, you see 4 different versions of the guy they call Jesus. And they're really different versions of the guy. Some overlap, but he really is a different guy. As mentioned, this chapter also discusses models. We talked about that at the very beginning. And concepts, which are clearly specified. Whoops, let's get down there. Clearly specified ideas deriving from a particular model. So you have your model, and from that, you get concepts, clearly specified ideas deriving from that model. Theories, you're not going to be quizzed on. You've already been quizzed on it before. So you won't have to fill in a blank with this word. Although if I'm in a bad mood, I might put it in the words below, but don't use it to fill in a blank on this quiz. Howard Becker said, this is great, I just love this. His colleague Bernard Beck told students who wanted to make a theory, say you want to make a theory, how do you do it? He said, tell me what you found out with all your research, but without using any of the identifying characteristics of the actual case. And that's how you make a theory. I thought that was so nice, so clean. So the textbook says that this key term arranges sets of concepts to define and explain some phenomena. It's amazing how textbooks make things so much more complicated than they need to be. Hypotheses. I do want you to know about hypotheses. Unlike the key term above, theories, hypotheses are tested in research. A hypothesis is a testable proposition, often based on an educated guess, according to the textbook. Methodologies define how we will go about studying any phenomena. Methodologies can be defined broadly, a qualitative methodology or a quantitative methodology, or narrowly. Grounded theory is a methodology, or narrative analysis is a methodology, for example. They're not just true or false, it's just whether they're useful or not. Is this a useful methodology to do the kind of analysis that interests me? Methods, last key term, are specific research techniques. They're not true or false. They're either useful methods, specific research techniques, or they're not useful. It's not about true or false. And those are your key terms for this chapter. Thank you, class.